All right. It's 6:30, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our January 18th Select Board meeting. Got a pretty good crowd here. We have a full board, the three of us here, and Heather Chase and Lee Dakin are joining us on Zoom. Hi, guys. You can hear us all? Everything's good out there?
Sounding good.
Great. If anybody coming in late, just make sure you sign the sign-in sheet so we can have it for the record on who's attending the meeting, who's here. The first item on our agenda is to approve our minutes from our January 4th Select Board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 4th meeting.
I'll second that, and I do have just one question on the last minutes.
So Lee is the motion and Lee is the second. And what was your question, Lee?
Well, on page 4, line 3, I think the word at the end of that line, rather than attention, is intention. Intention. It was our intention to.
Julie didn't think that was ever anyone's intention. Yeah, that probably makes sense. Yep. Thanks.
That's the only thing I found. Good catch.
Anybody else have anything else?
I had one on page 1, line 41. It says the other person from the trustee of public funds was Aaron Perry. It should be Aaron Carey, I believe.
Yeah.
And then on page, if I can find it,
Okay.
7, line 12. I'm not sure what that last sentence means. Julie will resurface all the research they did a couple years ago. I'm not sure what that means.
Where are you again, Lee?
Page 7.
Yep.
Line 12. Julie will resurface all the research they did a couple years ago.
Susan's probably saying that I probably indicated that I would pull out all the old research we
Okay.
did.
Research, all the old research?
It says Julie will resurface all the old research.
Okay,
Yeah.
it makes sense in
Yeah.
that context. I just wanted to double check.
That would be my guess. I probably said that. I'll just write it down.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll leave that one then.
The only thing I had was page 4, line 16. Lee questioned tail coverage.
Yeah, so tail coverage is a type of insurance, I guess.
Okay, then I'm good.
Yeah, I had that same question. And
So that is right.
is
That's
correct,
the term for it. Anything else?
that's all I had.
All those in favor of approving the minutes with the corrections that we've made, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Anybody opposed? The next item on our agenda is citizens' comments.
Mr. Chair, I think you need to vote on that one for it to be approved.
Oh, yeah, Arnie, sorry, I was on mute. I didn't vote because I wasn't there.
And I wasn't either. So
So
for the
there's just
quorum, it would
three of
need the
us.
3 of you.
And I vote yes also. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we did make the 3 vote threshold there, just barely.
Yes.
Citizens' comments. If there is someone here that would like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Are there any citizens' comments? No, hearing none, we'll move on to old business. And Julie, can you take us through our old business list.
Okay, there's really only one thing for tonight. Trustee of Public Funds, I met with the trustees, and as requested, they have agreed to approve the 2023 expenses that were requested from the public funds, primarily for cemetery usage. So that really was the only update.
No, what was that, 29,000
It
around
was
there?
a little over 29,000, correct.
And did they just refuse the other part of it, or did we withdraw the request?
We had a lively discussion, and ended in, I agreed to, since we are ending 2022 on a very minor surplus of $5,000, that we would leave those funds, not request 2022, knowing that there were further projects for the cemetery coming down the road.
All right, great.
That's where it's at.
That's it for old business on your end.
For me, yeah.
Anybody else have any old business concerns or questions or comments?
I have none.
Not at this time.
I have none. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Our next item on our agenda is an update from our local Cannabis Control Commission. We established that commission, I imagine it's been about a year now. Once the town of Chester decided to opt in for retail cannabis last March, I believe it was. And we have Ariana Knapp here, who is the chairman of the commission, to give us an update and a little history on what's been going on in the last year.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to try and play both sides of the microphone. There's a written report which will be made part of the record of tonight's minutes, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yep.
And it will also be available as part of the minutes from the Cannabis Commission. So if anyone wants to follow up on this, feel free. As Arnie mentioned, cannabis was legalized in the state of Vermont back in 2020. In March of 2022, the town of Chester had an opt-in vote where the town did vote to opt in for retail cannabis. The select board impaneled this commission in March, and members include myself, Risa Alexander, Lee Gustafson, who's also a select board member, Ben Whalen, who's also a select board member, Tom Dyack, Barry Pensky, and back in March, we had one vacant seat. We started meeting in April. At that time, the state had not yet determined all of its processes for licensing cannabis establishments. So part of what we did as a commission was meet regularly to pay attention to how the state was rolling out their regulations, what that process was going to be, in order to prepare ourselves for the eventual application here in Chester. In September, Charles Baird agreed to fill the empty seat, and we became a full commission at that time. Also in September, the state opened applications for retail cannabis here in Vermont. In October, retail cannabis opened for business in the state of Vermont, and we anticipate the potential for an application here in Chester in January or February of 2023. That's the general timeline of both the state and Chester and this commission. What does the commission do and not do? When we were first impaneled, the state's intention was that the local commission would approve and license applications through the town of Chester. Since the commission was impaneled, the state has continued to evolve their policy and their procedure in a manner in which leaves the local commission with little or no substantive decision-making authority. So as things have evolved over the last 7 months, it's become clear that the commission doesn't actually have actionable things to evaluate within an application because the state has covered all of that and their compliance is robust. The commission had to be clear from the beginning. The local commission has no authority or responsibility for cannabis-related businesses that are not retail to the public. So if you've been reading the news or you're aware of what's happening, there are growers, cultivators, manufacturers, wholesalers. All those businesses that relate to cannabis don't flow through the local cannabis commission. Anything that is not retail is only the purview of the state. for their licensure. So for information, it's also very public information on the Cannabis Control Board for the state, what applications are in for what towns. So it's public information that here in Chester, there is an application for a manufacturer and a application for a cultivator for the town of Chester. But the only reason we know about that is because we went on the website and read it, not because we have any engagement in that part of the process. What we hope and what we have spoken and espoused is that we as a commission would like to be an educational resource for the community, for other businesses coming in, for businesses already in the town. If we can do anything, hopefully we can gather information and make it available to others or field questions of that nature. When and if a retail cannabis business is operating in Chester, the local Cannabis Commission could be a body to receive concerns regarding the issues that the town has some engagement on, which would be light, noise, signage, or nuisance ordinances if any establishment were to breach those here in the town of Chester. However, the zoning administrator continues to hold primary jurisdiction in all of those cases and all of those type of concerns. We will, and we do, stay up to date on the shifting regulations that are evolving from the state in the hopes that we can provide further information and support to the zoning administration, the DRB, the select board, various other interested parties here in Chester. A state snapshot, what's been happening around us. Sorry, I've had my back to Zoom the whole time. What's been happening around us in the state, as sales became legal on October 1st. By November 30th, there were $2.6 million in cannabis business in the state of Vermont, and that was with very few dispensaries actually open at that time. Cannabis industry has already generated well over $300,000 to the state's general fund in only the first 3 months of retail sales. At the time of writing this, so 2 weeks ago, there were 32 retail licenses which have been issued in the state of Vermont and 22 retail dispensaries that are open in the state of Vermont. 30 other towns, like Chester, have a local commission as of December. Anecdotally, I will share the town of Burlington and Woodstock, not the village of Woodstock, have each very publicly also spoken up about the fact that the commission does not have the authority which was implied when the commissions were created. So it's not just our commission that's feeling like we are not actually doing anything substantive. That feeling is shared in other towns that have local commissions as well. There have been a lot of questions, and they aren't resolved. We don't have definitive answers on how money would flow to Chester from hosting or having a cannabis business in our town. As of right now, it still stands that only a $100 application fee would go from the state to the town in recognition of us considering a cannabis application. There is a robust movement to approach those members of our state house to encourage the state to legislate more fiscal money coming to the towns that have these industries. If it's going to be a boon to the state's pocketbook, the general feeling is it should be a little bit of a boon to the towns as well. That is something we will be paying attention to, but as of right now, there's no avenue for money to come back to flow back to the town. Some of the general issues that you may have heard if you've been listening to the news. People talk about the inventory being low statewide. I attribute that personally to the state being a slow, methodic rollout process, so the growers and the manufacturers and the cultivators didn't get licensed in enough time to generate enough inventories that when 21 dispensaries opened on October 1st, there would be enough inventory on the shelves. That's something that's been talked about, but in conversations with retail owners of businesses that are open, they've said it's been no problem, they're doing okay. But inventory is continuing to grow as licenses for those manufacturers and cultivators continue to grow. Consumption laws, almost the elephant in the room, but I'm here to say Right now, there are not laws about who, how, and what measure can be taken of cannabis as relates to driving under the influence or other questions of that nature, which are way heavy on all of us. All of us want to know how that's going to be handled. The whole country is still trying to figure that out. I assume that is something that will evolve over the next year or two. It's not something that's being ignored. It's something that has not been solved. So the question of how do you test for someone's use or effect of cannabis, the question is still out there and unresolved, not ignored. Compliance for those businesses that are in the cannabis industry. The state has developed a robust compliance system with inspectors, investigators, all sorts of layers of compliance, which are going to put business owners through their rigorous standards. And we will see how that plays out over the coming year once businesses are open and rolling and concerns about compliance come up. All of that is handled, again, at the state level out of Montpelier. Speaking again about education, two components that are worth mentioning, that millions of dollars that are coming in, of that excise tax on cannabis, 70% of it in the state of Vermont is earmarked towards education. So that's educational resources for addiction, for underprivileged schools, resources of that nature. 70% of the cannabis excise tax is already allocated for those needs in the state of Vermont. Which is something for us all to remember, that it's not just big money making people rich in Montpelier, it's actually going to the systems around the state, whether or not the town hosts a cannabis establishment or not. The mission of the commission, what we've come to as part of each of our gatherings or meetings, has been that we will review applications when they become available, a resource for incoming businesses or entrepreneurs or curious businesses or entrepreneurs, be aware of local compliance issues, and provide information to the community. If the commission is not in a position to thoroughly evaluate applications after the state has done it, then at least we can be a resource for the community, the town, and the businesses, as long as the commission exists, so we have a purpose. Looking ahead, the state projects 30 to 40% growth year over year for the next 2 years. The value of this commission, as of October 2023, the state will have all aspects of regulation and compliance under their jurisdiction, likely rendering local commissions unnecessary. The value of a thriving market, over $1 million is projected to be added to the state's general fund in the first year alone. Speculation for tourism impact has yet to be published. Community and business growth, the Vermont cannabis industry has been rolled out with a conscious effort to keep business owners and their profits here in Vermont. Finally, a note about our neighbors. Here in New England, Connecticut and New York have both opened for retail sales in the last 3 months. They have not done the level of consideration that the state of Vermont has done. Anecdotally, New York's retail market is a mess and a challenge, and I am very happy that at least here it's been regulated very clearly and publicly and transparently so that not only consumers but business owners know what their path is to market. New York can't say the same. But that means, with the exception of New Hampshire, all of our state neighbors have legal retail cannabis. So concerns that we would be a destination across borders are rendered irrelevant. We can now attend our business for our state, for our community, for our towns, and not try and create legislation or ordinances about people coming in from out of state, because it's now legal everywhere except New Hampshire, up here in New England. That's the nature of my report. That's a little bit about what we've been doing for the past 8 or 9 months. I was going to open this up to questions from the select board. 2 of you guys serve on both commissions. or to the community. But I would defer to you, Arnie. I know you have a full agenda tonight.
No, I think questions or concerns by any of the folks here or attending by Zoom, it would be the appropriate time.
Great.
I mean, thank you for an excellent, concise report. You rarely get claps for reports like that.
Wrong business. Great. Any questions from you guys? Because you've sort of watched us, you and paneled us, you know what we've been doing.
Yeah. So the one part that interested me was the fact that you thought maybe the commission wouldn't even be necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something we should try to get to, not having it, or do you still see some value in it, even though you have very limited, if any, powers at all?
I will speak, I've spoken anecdotally to members of the commission, each of them, but I will speak on my own for myself and then go back to the commission and confirm. My feeling is that the task at hand definitely doesn't require 7 people. The value is in, I think, this first year as we watch businesses come in so that we have a real, just like the state, we can be cautious and thorough and go over everything. But I don't think the panel has a specific purpose other than to be a resource to the community, which some of us are all still very happy to do. I think it would be beneficial for the select board to consider at another time reducing the size of the commission or considering looking ahead to how long the commission would need to be in place. We're in place for 3 to 5 years at this point, how it's been set up. But and again, I'm open to any questions regarding that as well. Reminder that I'm speaking as myself. I happen to be the chairman of the commission, but there are 7 of us, so I would want to confirm with everybody else.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what your panel, what your commission comes up with as far as some of those questions. And I would think they would be the ones that would be more in tune to the needs or the direction that the commission should take from there. And we do have a hand up for a question. Barry, you're going to have to come up to the microphone and identify yourself. And
Oh, and I think I left Barry off the list. Barry Pansky is also a member of our commission. Oh, I didn't.
It's just for Zoom, it
doesn't work for us. So, I think Ariana's quite amazing, and we're really lucky to have her. And I can reiterate the things that she's saying, as our chair and kind of a leader. But I think as far as the value of the commission, her speaking tonight and giving this report shows what that value is. If we were just out in space somewhere, we wouldn't know what was going on. So I think this is a really good example of why this has value, and we haven't met that much, and I think that we should keep doing it, and then we can be a buffer between the select board and the public and the town and the state. So I would certainly advocate that we keep going, even if we feel that having any real say in what's going on is in question, because being able to communicate what's going on and have someone like Ariana so involved in knowing what's going on is really invaluable.
I agree.
Arnie?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Heather. I think it's, and by the way, thank you for the report. I think that there could, in the long term, be more responsibility at the town level, perhaps. So I think keeping the commission intact until, we've transitioned some businesses, and the state gets clearer on how it's going to handle things would be very beneficial in my view.
Thank you, Heather. Any other questions or concerns or comments from the public or board members?
So I am one of the members of the commission, although I have just resigned and handed my resignation letter to Ariana. So as soon as we're done here, I'm done. But I appreciate Ariana and her leadership and the rest of the commission. It's been a great experience. But as she mentioned, I don't see the value in me being a part of this commission, and so therefore I'm spending my efforts and energy elsewhere.
Well, thanks for the time that you have spent on the board. It's volunteers, citizens that kind of keep all our things going and our government going. It's a thank you to everybody that has been on the commission. We kind of were thinking in the beginning when we first started this commission that it wasn't going to have much teeth. But just in that report alone, like you said, that's a lot of information, and having another set of eyes on it and gathering all this information and presenting it and keeping on top of it, I think is extremely valuable for us as a town, especially since we opt in. If we didn't opt in, it wouldn't make any sense at all, but it's, I think it's still very important at this time to maintain it and see how it goes from there. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Any other questions?
Well, thanks again for the great report. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is a discussion on our Citizens Advisory Board or Committee. I know the Select Board has been talking about this for a while, and some of the actions that some of the items that we were going to talk about, we were waiting for until our new chief was in place. And he has been there for, I believe, about a month now. And our new chief, Tom Williams, is here to discuss this and give us a perspective from his point of view on what he feels about this committee or the direction it should take or what it should be. So Tom, if you like, can you come up here and give us a little
You can sit
Insight.
and then lower that if you want.
It's easier to turn around and talk to
Whichever.
people
Yep.
face to face, and I can keep rotating, so I get everybody, I might get dizzy and fall over, but introduce myself so everybody is on the same page here. I'm Tom Williams. I'm the newly appointed police chief for the town of Chester. I was asked to come tonight to kind of give my opinion or my view on where we're going with the Citizen Advisory Board. And to start off with it, I just want to say that I think Chester is prime territory to start something like this. I know it's been started in other states, other areas around the country, other places within our state, but Chester is the community, the feeling, the different mixed match of culture, people that are here. It's a great place to have an advisory board that has input into how we deal with policing within our town. The citizens are paying for a service. We're trying to provide the best service we can. If we become one group as far as our mindset, we're all on the same page. We get nothing but good coming out of that, which is the direction the whole department's going. We've had the department under the same leadership for quite some time, which is perfectly fine, and it did a good job during the time. But over the course of my 33 years in law enforcement, things have changed. Things constantly evolve and change, and policing changes, and we need to change with that idea also. And I think this is a great way for the citizens to have input into how we police our community, which is very important. I think it's very important. And as the police chief, that's what I'm going to be looking for. I took down some notes. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this, but just some things that I wanted to throw out to everyone. Basically, the advisory board is a place for advice and input from the public, from the civilian side to the law enforcement side. We, by far, don't know everything, and I'll tell you that right up front. 33 years, and I learn something new every day, and when I say I've seen it all, no, somebody proved me wrong on that one again. So where I'm trying to go with this is the input from the public. It's very important for me to know, where does the community want to go? How do we want to police our community? You can go right from the strictest of enforcement. The law says speed limit's 25, you're doing 26, do we enforce 26? And I know it's an extreme, so don't take me verbatim for that. I'm just throwing it out there. Or do we like to build in a buffer? We are here to enforce the law, and we can enforce what is on the books the way it's on the books. We are looking for input as to how the community would like to see that done. And I use the speeding example is the easiest thing for people to kind of process on that. The speed limit's 25, we stop somebody for 26, we're going to issue the ticket. There's a minimum surcharge of $47, so you know you got that coming, plus whatever the fine is, which you add another 30, 40 bucks on there for that. So that's your minimum for 1 mile an hour over. Is that what the community wants to see? It's enforcement, and it's enforceable under the law, but where are we going with that? This advisory panel, that's one of many things that goes on in the advisory panel, and I'm new to the advisory panel too. We do not have to recreate the wheel again. There are other places that have it. There are other places that have put it out there and basically sunk the ship like the Titanic. And it has been an absolute mess. We're starting from ground zero. We can build this with a solid foundation, the way the community wants to build it. We can enforce it or use it to our abilities to make it whatever we want. We have the capability. We're starting with a brand new slate. So what I'm looking for is input, community input. That's going to be the biggest thing. On what topics? The topics are open. I would like to narrow them down a little bit so that we have things to focus on the way. But things like policy. We don't necessarily create our own policies. Policies are given to us by the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. It's a general overview of how things are done across the state, legally, what's worked, what doesn't work, what our parameters are to operate in. Those are under a microscope by the attorneys and legal people within those, within that agency. They see what's fit for pretty much everybody. Once it comes here, then my job as the chief right now would be to look at the policy and kind of tweak the policy to what fits the town of Chester. We don't have police here like they do in Burlington. It's a lot bigger department, a lot bigger population, a lot of different issues up there than there are in Chester. We're not the same. Take the town next door, Springfield. We're right next door. We have a lot of different issues, or I should say they have a lot of different issues than what we have. So policing is different here. Granted, it can merge, things can come across the line. Nothing stops at the Chester line and says, welcome to Chester, unless you are causing this problem or that problem. I wish it was that easy. Just put it on the side. We're good to go. But this advisory board is where we put those ideas out. And the advisory board is the direct link to the community. You are the community. The board is the community. I would be a part of it, I would assume. We haven't laid it all out, but I would be a piece of that. So that if there's questions on the civilian side, we'll try and answer those questions. If there's things that we need to tweak on the other side, I can offer stuff from the job perspective of what can we do legally, what can we do labor-wise, labor law-wise, can we actually enforce that within the department to have employees do A, B, and C, whatever it comes down to. It's just, it's a community process. And one of the big things when I was interviewed for the position for chief is the community policing philosophy. People call it a program. There is no real program for it. It's a philosophy of involving the public in policing their own community. That's one thing, as long as I have a captive audience here. The people on the stream can't go anywhere. But the community policing, everyone thinks, oh, the police, it's coffee with a cop. It's the cops have to do this, the cops have to do that. It's not. Community is the big part of that. The community figures out what issues the community has issues with. Some people may not care about speed enforcement. It's just not on, they live on a back road and they might see a car every other month. You know, they're not really concerned with that problem. Yet if you live on, and I'll just throw out there, Church Street, the place where the phone calls come from. People are cutting through there. Skiers are cutting through there trying to beat the traffic around and stuff. How do we solve those problems? Part of that community policing philosophy and part of this board would be you're receiving complaints from the public that's living on Church Street. And their complaint is, these people are rocket ships going across my road, and I'm trying to walk in that area, and I'm trying to walk my dog, and I don't want to listen to the noise because they're going by at 100 miles an hour. Part of that community policing philosophy is the community coming up with their own solutions to how to enforce that or how to police those issues. It's not the police that come up with all the solutions to everything. Again, I don't know everything. I wish I did, because I would be a lot richer than I am right now. So that's where we're going to get the input from. One of the things that I saw in this too is RPD has no mission statement. There's no vision statement. There's no goal or objective for the future. That is something that needs to come from the community. We are the community police department. Input on those type of things. Having the board sit down and reach out to the public for input on what our goals are, what our mission is, where are we going to go, and what's our 5-year plan? Where do we want to be? Do we want to be just doing same old, or do we want to progress? Those are all things that this advisory board has input in on and can weigh in on, and it is the community speaking at that point through that advisory board. Already touched on that. It's also a communication link for the police department to get stuff back out to the public. We run into a lot of things, I'll just say me specifically because I'm on the Facebook site quite a bit trying to answer people's questions. People have questions and there's not an official forum. Facebook, I guess, is the official forum. Makes it official once it's on Facebook, I guess. But people have questions. By the simple task of answering those questions, having contact, not argument, not a contest back and forth, who's going to win between the answers on this one. Just putting the information back out there. That is a huge, it's a huge success, at least from our side of it. People that have fought and argued and argued and argued over the smallest things just to have the argument in there, once they receive the information, it's like, oh, okay. Doesn't mean I'm 100% right, but at least they have something. And if they want to ask me, hey, I read something about this and you're kind of off a little bit, I learned something too. So it's communication. This opens up the communication backwards too. So where I can reach out and touch the individuals that are coming up to me at the coffee shop, or somebody stops into the PD to say, hey, I haven't seen the new building yet. Can I come in and take a look around? Come on in. I've got one person there, and that one person may talk to a couple people. We have this advisory panel. The panel is talking to the public all the time because they're taking in the information, and they can also pass my information back out. So it's a huge highway for information between the PD. We're not having that closed door thing anymore, where it's a one-way street. The PD's behind those doors. It's kind of like the secret lair or something. We don't have capes or anything, but it's a secret lair. We don't know what they do back there. They must be doing something. Maybe they're doing nothing. We're trying to open that up. Trying to be, well, I guess the word of the day is transparency. We want to be visible to the public. The public's paying for something. We want to be as out front as we can with everything. With that said, this whole thing with policy review. The policies can be reviewed, talked about through the panel, gone over with the public. They can have meetings with the public. We can have meetings with the panel and the public. It's all one big information sharing event. So depending on what comes up in the panel, what questions come up, what topics come up, that's going to drive different things. It's a fluid type thing. So one week, again, like I said, maybe speeding is one of the issues. Maybe, I don't even know what else would be on there. Just some other kind of complaint, or just people looking for information. That would be the place to go and to get everything out in the open. So I think that's the biggest portion of it. I had stuff on different philosophies in the background. I'm not going to get into any of that stuff. My biggest thing is I'm very supportive of this. I love the fact that going from the state police, where I had pretty much the southern half of the state, and actually in most of my career I had the whole state, border to border, Canada to Mass, for fire and explosions investigation. You get to meet people, but you may not see them for a while after that. It is nice to run into the same faces, the same people, to have people recognize that you're doing something and it's making a difference. And I can sit here and I can watch the difference being made. This advisory panel is the connection. It's part of the community policing. It's part of the philosophy. It's a tool. Hopefully we can use it to everyone's benefit, both on the PD side and on the civilian side. And again, I don't have anything laid out as far as how to create this and all that. I just wanted to throw it out there that I'm a huge supporter of it. I think there can be a lot of things be done with it. And I think even in the worst case scenario under that, I think we're still moving forward with that. if you know what I mean. I don't know if that came out right, but if things go bad, even in a bad sense with this panel, I think it will still be good. So I think that's all I have, or I'll sit here all night and just chat.
Well, thanks, Chief, for your input on this. I know this has been coming up in our discussions over the last half a year or so, but we wanted to wait until there was a new chief in place to get his or her take on this, and it would help us in guiding where we want to go as a select board, because in the beginning, we weren't even sure we were going to go this route, and whether it was going to be advisory or whether it was going to be oversight or however it was going to be formed and stuff. I like a lot of the things that you said about the communication being a big part of it, the transparency, and the fact that we want this to be a very positive committee or an organization too. It's good to open the discussion to see what other board members feel about it, and hopefully some community members, if they have any ideas about how this should go and how it should work and stuff. I realize that we as a select board have to set down guidelines for a committee because it is guided by state statute and policies and everything else that's involved. And we have to probably establish those guidelines and stuff and where we want to go with it. But we have to have these discussions first to see what that's going to look like also, just to see what it's going to be formed like, because there are different ways of doing this. Which is why I think it's important to have this discussion, to start it, and to see where we want to go from here and stuff. So everything that you said is going to help us in guiding us as opposed to where we want to go with this and how it's going to be established. I know in our packages for the meeting this tonight, there was a couple of different towns that we had. A police advisory committee, I believe, from Barry, and then also one from Milton as examples to use and stuff that gives us an idea of how it could be formed or how it could operate and some of the guidelines that would go along with it and stuff. You know, that being said, maybe the committee gets formed first, and then the committee, along with your help and whoever else is involved, are the ones that decide where it should go or how the guidelines should be formed and what it should be and stuff. I mean, we as a board would definitely approve it at the end and have a lot of say in it, but I don't know what the exact process is from this point to have an established police advisory committee and its guidelines. But we are the ones that decide this, so I mean, the conversation starts here, and with your help, I think we will have a product at the end that will help the town, help the citizens, be a positive committee, and work the way that we hope that it would help everybody in this town for this, especially for the items like you were talking about, the communication between the town and the police force and putting a face with what's going on. It's important, and especially in a smaller town, which probably is a little easier than a bigger town, because everybody does know everybody, and everybody is connected in one way or another. I'm interested in what other board members feel on this and what their thoughts are on this and their ideas about it.
So I just got a couple of comments. It seems like there's a few examples that we've been given of committee policies that have been established elsewhere. From my perspective, I don't feel competent or have the necessary skills to develop any of this stuff. So my thought would be to have Julie and Tom work together to at least put a skeleton out there, framework out there for us to look at. And then we can look at it and say, how does this fit in with the goals that we want as a town for this particular committee? Tom, just out of curiosity, do you have any feel for how many members this committee would have?
I think that a good approach for a small town is to get a sampling of the community onto the board. So I'll go back to what I just recently went through with the interview board for the police chief. There was somebody from the school board, however, whatever depth you want to get into it.
Excuse me, can you use the microphone, please?
Over to the mic.
Sorry.
They can't hear you.
I should
Thank you.
stands where you guys can see, so.
They're looking to you from here. Those cameras
I'll go
are-
this
There
way.
you
This
go.
worked.
There you go, Tom.
All right. was thinking a sampling of the community itself, and it worked well on the, I think, on the police interview, the police chief interview panel. There was somebody from the school board. I was actually the superintendent. There's somebody from the business side of town, so you have representation from the business. You could have somebody from, let's say, it's not the rec department, but somebody that's more involved in that side of town, somebody from the select board. I don't know how that would go, or if that's in policy, or whether that's allowed. I mean, the town really, like I said, you've got a clean slate to start with, so you can build it as to what you want it. But having representation from around the town, maybe even different portions of the town, because things that are going on in Gassets are not the same things going on 103 South. There are different communities, different issues, different desires. If you're living on 103 on the racetrack up north, those issues might be different than coming down through Stone Village, which still is a racetrack. I don't want to get any bad emails or anything, but still a racetrack, but maybe a different perspective on it, and maybe a different way to approach handling the enforcement in those areas. And the one thing I do want to put out here too, just remember, we are a small department. It's not like I call in 7 people and I've got a tactical team ready to go to stop skier traffic, and it's one person. So that one person, if it's me, I'm working on policy, I'm working on complaints, I'm working on somebody's fighting with their neighbor, I'm following up on a burglary investigation from last week. It's a lot of moving pieces that have to go into that. And again, with this advisory board, that's where the information gets funneled, because maybe a lot of people don't realize that. But as far as your question as to who to put on it, I think a good mix match from the community, and however that needs to be laid out, so that we have representation. And if we put them on, it doesn't mean that that person has to stay on that panel for, let's say you have a 1-year term, a 2-year term. Now you decide that, okay, well, let's mix it up a little bit. The next round, we're going to put these business people in there, or these representatives in there. So I think it's something, like I said, it's a fluid thing, and it's brand new, so you can build it whatever way you want. But representation from across the board, I think, would give us the best input on the police side of it.
So, you know, Lee, your idea about Julie and the chief getting together just to flush this out a little bit, I think it's a good idea, but I think also maybe there should be some community members involved with that also.
Sure, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, what I was thinking, Arnie, was that the framework can be established, and then get input from the community to flesh it out a little bit, and then it comes to us.
Yeah.
That way, we're not kind of trying to make stuff up as we go along, because I'm not competent to do that.
No.
You know, I'm not qualified at all. But the bones can be set out and then fleshed out with input from the community. And then that would give us an idea of who in the community might be interested in serving on the committee. And then I like Tom's idea of kind of mixing it up so that we have representatives from various sectors of our community able to participate.
And I think it's important maybe to get the word out sooner than later that we are looking for people to join and be on a committee of this type, to have people. I've had one person approach me about it a couple of months ago that was interested in it, and that was before any notification was even put out there. It was just hearing it through the select board minutes that we had discussed it, and it was going to be coming up, which I thought it was a positive sign. So maybe if we get the word out there that this is happening, and then with tonight's meeting, with you presenting like you have, and the fact that we are looking for folks that would like to be involved in something like this, it'd be important for us to make sure, to know who they are. And I think it would be important for the town too, to have that input, even in the establishment, and even in the framework of it and stuff also. The 2 examples we had are probably one end of the spectrum, and I've heard of other towns where they've had other ideas and oversight and stuff where it really has gone backfire and stuff. I personally like the idea of the advisory committee, the way it's set up and the way it's more positive than it is punitive and oversight. This one is more of a communication thing, whereas the other one seemed more like a like running the show type thing. And I don't think that's the place of citizens when it comes to police work especially. But to be involved in it, that's a whole different thing.
Arnie?
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with both of you guys that it would be really good to have Julie, everyone work on it, bring it to us, get community involvement. But could we have a time frame on it so that we're like we can have a goal of 2 months or something until we actually assign people to it or nominate people to it? Because and I understand how we got here, but it's taken a while. So if we could have some time frame on it, I think it would make people feel better that we're moving ahead. And by the way, Chief, I'm really happy about your philosophy and wanting community involvement, because going forward, I think that that's just really essential. So thank you.
I too already have a comment. I was very pleased to receive in our packet the Police Advisory Committee paperwork, and a lot of energy's gone into this, and it was very well done, and I'm so happy to see this. And thank you very much for putting this together.
Thank you, Lee. And Heather, to your point, a timeline I think is fine. I think now that the ball is rolling, I think we're going to be accomplishing what we want to do in a relatively short amount of time. And hopefully there are citizens out there that would like to join on this committee and help out and help the town. And I think that's going to be the determining factor on where this committee goes and how it's formed and when it's formed. If we get the response from the community that's positive and wants to join in on this, I don't think we'll have a problem at all as far as the timeline goes, and hopefully that will be the case. So we could look at it from those eyes, I guess. Are there any comments or questions or concerns for the chief while he's here?
I just agree with Lee that, let's throw this back to where the expertise is. And Julie and Chief can, that's the level of expertise we need, so.
All right, thank you, Heather. And sir, just give us your name and.
Hi, my name is Vincent Buckholz. I live here on 116 Maple. I have been in mental health community for many, many years, and I would like to talk more about that representing in the advisory committee, like how maybe mental health, and we've all been through a lot of stress for the past couple of years, and it might have some value just to talk that through and how that might be of some benefit to the advisory committee.
I think it would be a huge help.
A huge help, thank you.
Huge benefit to the police department on its own too, so okay, just having a connection with that. So
We'll be in touch.
Appreciate that, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I think most of us have chipped in, so I'll throw in my sense. I think the idea of us coming up with a concept and guideline and establishing that to move forward is good, and that way that advisory role is defined as that committee is made up, and it's not then just created by the committee. I do, having read through the model policies here, the couple that we received, the one that Milton uses seems very, I'm not coming up with the right word, but I like it. In the concept of communication and transparency, communication, I think, is, anytime we look into what's faulting something, it's typically coming back to communication. So just having a group that's able to get together, have conversations, and talk about those things in a forum that's, maybe it isn't quite this formal, even though it's still an open meeting, and it's a round table and sit down and have a good talk. So I think those are all really great things. And I think, Chief, with your comment that there's no mission statement, no vision, no core values, those are the things that an agency like yours should be striving to achieve on a daily basis. So not having those, I think, it's really surprising, and I think that's a great thing to work on, and I think that would be a great first task for that group to work through with the entire law enforcement team we have. So it's a good step.
Thank you, Ben. So I think the consensus is we're all on the same page. We think this is a great idea. We think it's a very positive idea. having the chief and Julie to flush out the basic framework and the basic guideline for this committee, getting the word out to the public that we're looking for people to help with this is going to be another part of it, and to see what the response is from there. And then we could take it forward from there.
Okay. Tom and I will meet and we'll report back.
Thank
Tom,
you.
thanks again for all your help with this.
Thank you,
It's
Tom.
important for the town, and I think it's going to work out really well.
Thank you again.
This thing picks up noises everywhere. Next item on our agenda is our general fund balance approval, basically our budget for this coming year. And I know, Julie, you've been working extremely hard on this, and it's been taking up a lot of your time for the last month or so, or last couple of months. But the final document's in front of us, and Julie, can you take us through it, please?
I can. So there's actually been one further last-minute change today. So actually, what this budget is proposing is an increase of $206,084.96, which is down a little over $21,000 from the budget that you received the other day. That is primarily due to, as much as the select board knows, some of the community may know, Amanda Silva, our ambulance chief, is leaving Chester Ambulance to be able to be home with her family. So we're taking this opportunity to take a step back, look at restructuring potentially of our emergency services. But in the meantime, we have hired from within Michael Ranzio, one of our EMTs, and also one of our part-time police officers was part of a pilot program that I think I had updated the board on several months ago, of where we are cross-training police with EMTs and fire with EMTs. Mike was the first one who, his primary responsibility will be ambulance, but while he is waiting for those calls and admin work is done, he will be in a cruiser running radar in certain areas of town as he is trained now as a part-time officer. So it was kind of a pilot. We're looking to do more, but we've slated him in for full-time admin. With that came a change in benefits. We went from a family plan down to a single person who is opting out of our health insurance. So that was a $17,000 swing right there. In addition, Mike will be taking over the role of health officer, and his salary includes that task. So what I've done is removed the health officer stipend, because that is in the job description of the ambulance coordinator. So that removed $3,600 from the budget as well. This budget is proposing $206,084.96, which is just about 5 cents on the tax rate.
It's a little higher than we thought earlier, but there was a few things that happened. And part of it was the way we budget for the school, I believe, and that was wreaking havoc with the whole budget, and it was hard to figure out exactly where that played in, because that number is a hard one to pin down, because you don't know what's going on with it.
The other big factor in this is the swing of highway. So while we ended, the general fund for 2022 ended with a surplus of a little over $5,000, highway ended in a deficit. And so highway funds have to be allocated separately. We vote them in our general fund budget, but they have to be, by Vermont law, have to be accounted for separately. So we went from a surplus in 2021 of about $53,000 to a deficit in 2022 of $54,000. So that's a $100,000 swing right there. And most of the cost increases, while they hit across the board, the majority are in highway. Culverts triple the cost. fuel. Diesel. We all know what happened with fuel costs in 2022. Bridge material, price of lumber, triple the cost. So a lot of the cost increases hammered highway the most. So that is a big part of this $200,000 increase, is that.
It's still a budget that will not impact services that the people of the town are used to having, which is important. Because when you get to the point where if you're trying to level fund or get anything close to that, the question becomes, well, what do you want to give up? Because people are accustomed to having the things that they have in this town, whether the roads, the highways, the bridges, the rec department, all the programs, the library, and everything else that this town offers and stuff. It costs money, and with crazy inflation rates of 7 or 8%, I believe it was this year and stuff, the fact that we're only up that 5 cents is, I think, a testament to the hard work of all the department heads and yourself to try to keep things under control
And
and reined in.
there is no fluff in here. Anything that was a extra project has been removed. We have not removed things like field culverts that need to be replaced. Projects, we're not just kicking things around. But if there are projects that are not critical to the operation of the department, those are all.
And I know we had a discussion about ARPA funds over the last year and stuff when they first came in, and we thought that we're going to be able to finance things on our dream list. But the ARPA funds came in extremely valuable to keep our budget where it is, because they were used for items that were already
But it's not, oh,
stuff and already.
Primarily
that we were
the
gonna have.
overflow of the
Yeah.
public safety
Yeah.
building, which was constructed during COVID costs. So, yeah.
And there still is some money in that fund, which will be helpful in the future, or for any projects that might come up or something that comes up. But those funds did help as far as keeping this budget down to where it is also, because I know that the word is in some places in Vermont that the increases are a lot more.
Oh, yes.
And we're on the low side of the increases that are happening. And I know it's not always a wise thing to compare ourselves with other towns, especially because it could backfire sometimes when you do that. But in this case, it is true. We've kept the budget down, and it's down low compared to the increase it could be, because I think the town does a good job and a wise job on how they spend their money and what goes on. So,
Well, we're trying to keep it down, but not falsely suppress
Yeah.
the budget, because we don't want to just end '23 in a deficit. That doesn't benefit us, it just makes the problem worse.
yeah,
So
you pay
are we
for it
looking
now or pay for it later.
Are we looking for a motion to approve this, or is there one more change that we need to
Friday,
see?
That is up to you guys if you want to set it tonight, or you can take it, you're meeting Friday anyways to approve the warning. It's up to the board, what you guys want to do. I don't see any changes from here unless you start making cuts to services. I don't see.
But this budget that we have here is not the correct one, because
The
this is
206, the changes in the ambulance. So if you would like to see the one with the final change.
with the real numbers
That's
on it.
entirely up to you.
I'd like to see that.
I guess we're going to see it Friday, right? So,
Yeah, what time's that meeting, guys?
We haven't decided yet. We will get to that, and we'll try to figure it out, what works for everybody. It'll be a
Okay,
short
thank
one,
you.
but it will be Friday, because the Thursday is the last day for the
For
warrants,
petitions, correct.
petitions and stuff.
so just to throw out my schedule, I'm available in the morning, and that's it on Friday.
I unfortunately am not at all available because I'm having my knee replaced on Friday.
We'll come visit you.
Okay.
Oh, Heather, can you zoom in on us on Friday?
Depending on time, and I can be home and be live, but it's in the afternoon.
So you would only be able to make it in the afternoon? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I might be able to make it in the morning, depending on what time.
And Ben?
I could do virtual in the morning, and in person would have to be evening.
So you want to try for virtual in the morning, we'll get a couple of signatures, and then we'll make sure we get a couple other people in later on in the day or in the evening or whenever they can to put their John Hancock on it later on.
So do we have to vote on it before we sign it, or it's just we sign it?
We'll vote on it on Friday. I mean, we could vote on it now.
That's entirely up to you. You don't sign the budget.
Right.
It's up to you if you.
We just gotta, we
The
just gotta,
morning.
No.
yeah, okay.
But Heather was, and I wouldn't mind seeing the clean copy also of the right
Yeah,
numbers in
and
and
that's
stuff.
fine.
And-
I would also be available in the afternoon. I gotta take my wife to the airport, so I'm not sure what the weather's gonna do. But I'd be able to come before like 10 o'clock or after, well, it depends on the roads.
Well, that, and I'm
3,
going to
4,
say,
5.
Mika flies back to college on Friday, so I need to leave here by 9.
It's getting complicated here.
So it's,
By what time, Julie?
I need to be on the road by 9 to get her to Albany.
How about
Where's Heidi
8?
flying out of?
8 o'clock on Friday morning.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Friday morning is fine. Okay.
Does that work?
Zoom, baby. I gotta do it Zoom.
8 o'clock
That works for me.
on Friday. And Lee, good luck with your knee surgery on Friday. We'll be thinking about you.
And you could Zoom in from the hospital if you really wanted to.
Does anybody have any
I don't think so.
concerns or comments regarding the budget? I know we've gone over it quite a few times, but yes, up here.
I would just like to know the status of the library budget, whether the increase was accepted or not.
It wasn't on, well, it's not in there on this
It's
budget. It's
not.
the same money as last year.
Okay.
And that's a good question. Is the board happy with that? Is the consensus of the board that we're going to leave it at last year's amount? Or does anybody feel that we could increase it to that $100,000 mark? We've had this discussion before, and we've kind of kicked the can down the road, but it's a legitimate question.
Well, actually, I didn't think we kicked it down the road. I thought we made the decision to keep it at 93, so.
I don't know if we have formally made any
Yeah.
decision on it, but yeah,
Well,
that's where it's.
That's what I'm happy with. I mean, we're already increasing the budget quite a bit and enough to cause some concern for taxpayers. So adding another 7,000 is not going to be helpful.
I hear what you're saying, but I also look at every other line on this budget, and every single line is up, except the library.
Well,
Could I propose, instead of the 7.5?
We could
I
propose,
mean, every place, every single thing is up. We came down on the employees' raises a bit from the initial thing, so everyone has come down, but everything's gone up. So I think we should have consistency, and the library's asked for 7, but maybe we can give them 5.
how does the rest of the
More.
board feel on that?
So for me, it's first off, I appreciate everything the library does. And I think that's said. And I think there's also some repairs and other items that are occurring with the library and general maintenance that fall on our purview as well. I think the reason this conversation has happened for 2 months is you do have a fund with a pretty large amount of money that does seem to sit there. And
There are other expenses that we will be taking from that fund, which I had actually asked Julie too, is we're not even sure what we can take out of those funds. It's kind of like, those are in investment funds. So even if somebody's in a apartment complex and it's based on your income, the state doesn't look at, oh, you've got this much money. They take a percentage of it to apply towards your income. Our assets are there, most of them are fixed, and we can take a percentage of them, and we have the fund, the given fund, whatever it's called, we have already earmarked because we have to upgrade many of the systems in the library. So we've already earmarked that we might be taking $10,000 to $15,000 out of that, which has nothing to do with the $7,000 that we asked for. I mean, that's opera, I mean, I
Not
just
my
look in that
decision.
direction. Yeah, I know. So I'm just saying that,
Tell me what to do.
you know, the board went through the budget, and we are increasing what we are going to bring in or try to bring in with fundraising, with grants, with trying to get, we've been getting quite a few donations, as a matter of fact. But we looked at this very carefully, and the increase that we asked for is important. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, as Heather said, and rest, it's like if every other expense in the town is going up, why is the library staying the same? So.
But again, Don, I appreciate as well what you're doing in the position that you find yourself in as the newly appointed chair of the library trustee. However, just looking at our budget, the town is already expending over $100,000, $108,000 on the library. That's what's in the budget. 93 is specifically going to the library fund, but the rest of it is library expenses, utilities, water, sewer, fuel, and repairs and maintenance. So for me to go to the taxpayer and say, we're going from $108,000 to $125,000, whereas, and I know we have a little difference of opinion as to the money that you have and what it can be used for, et cetera, but I would feel more comfortable if I saw something from the library that said, here's the money that we have, here's what it's planned for, here's what we can spend it on, here's what we can't spend it on. Then I would feel more comfortable saying, okay, your request makes sense because you don't have the funds available. But we're in the same position. You know, all of our funds have gone down too. And everybody who pays taxes in the town is in the exact same position. So for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, I'd love to give the library another $7,000, I'd love to be able to say that, but I have to look my constituents in the eye and tell them why I made that decision. And I don't necessarily have the ability to do that with a straight face at this point. So again, I appreciate what the library does, I appreciate what you're doing, but I'm also a little bit concerned with the amount of money the town is already spending to add another $7,000 to it. So that's where I come down on this. That's my.
Well,
We don't always agree with the board. Hey, Heather, hang in a second.
Yeah.
Pamela Johnson, the library director, has her hand up, and I just wanted to get her.
oh, sorry.
Sorry, all right. Pamela?
Hi, yes, thank you, Ari. I just want everyone to also understand that money that we potentially have that is sitting there, that you feel like we should pull from, we have a lot of capital improvements that need to be done into the library because of just deferred maintenance, and that's technology, that's a new library management system. The list can go on, and we're also looking at trying to still do the community grant for the backyard for the library with the town. There's many things we're looking at, and that's what those funds are there for. But what we're asking is we need $7,000 more in our annual operating expenses. That's all we're asking for.
Thank you, Pam. Go ahead, Heather. Thank you, Pamela.
Well, thank you. So I get how you feel, Lee. I feel the opposite. I don't want to go to the constituents and say we raised the line items in almost every category except the library. The library, we all agree, is a very important part of our community, and I think we should increase their line item, and my suggestion was $5,000.
Thank you, Heather. I'm leaning more towards what Heather said as a compromise, not going the full 7 and going the 5 on it. And part of it all is what she said. Every other department and every other line item hasn't gotten this kind of scrutiny that we're giving the library. I mean, it has, but the debate has never been this decisive, it seems. And to your point, Lee, I understand that fund that sits back there, and it probably should be more well-defined as far as what can happen or not happen with it, but not having those answers doesn't mean we should punish the library.
I'm not, I take exception to that. I don't think this is punitive. I think
No,
this is.
yeah, that was
Okay.
probably the wrong word to use.
Yes, well, thank you. I think we need to be careful that we're recognizing the value of the various institutions in town. And the library is a very valuable institution. I agree 100%. And if we had the money, I would give it no problem. I don't see an issue with that. But similar to the trustees of public funds, we have a bunch of money that's not being used as it's intended. And I know that, to Donna's point, it's not clear to me what the actual use of the money is, or what the process is, or what the policies are related to that money. I haven't heard a good explanation yet, other than, well, we have a bunch of capital improvements or whatever. I mean, we as a town are already doing capital improvements to the library building. We're paying for the heat, we're paying for all that stuff. So while I understand that it's a difficult year for everybody, I'm not saying that the 93 is going to be from here on out. I think for this year, to add a $7,000 increase to the budget is going to be difficult, and it's going to make it more of a burden on the taxpayer, when I think if we could defer that for another year and make the decision next year to increase it, to look at it again.
Well, the library in the last year has gone through a lot of turmoil, and we could, I'm not wanting to dig through that and go down that path of discussing it, but I think these volunteers and the library employees deserve the next year to get it together, to be real clear on what they're going to do and have a plan. The board, we know what's happened, and I think supporting the library, I think we need to support the library, and the budget's up, but the budget's up. And just like what Arnie was saying, and everyone agreed, Chester has done a pretty good job considering what we've all been through. So adding the 206 plus $5,000 is going to be, Julie, 211.
Yep.
And how much is that? Instead of 5 cents, it's 5 what?
It'll still be about 5 cents.
5 and an 8.
Yeah, it'll still be about 5 cents. So, in the sense of what the library does for our community, especially during COVID, the jumping and keeping our community and our, we have a lot of vulnerable citizens that really, loneliness was in an epidemic proportion prior to the pandemic, and now I don't even know what it is. So the fact that we have a library where people can go to, and they need $7,000, I think we can do the $5,000. So I'm advocating once again for the $5,000 in the budget.
So Heather, I appreciate your comments and thoughts. You mentioned fragile community members, but we also have a number of financially fragile community members, and the money has to come out of our pockets. And so my concern is that all of us have been hit by the current economic turmoil. And so to ask the taxpayer to chip in another half penny or an eighth of a penny, whatever it is, I think is going to put some people on the edge of being able to live in Chester. And while I understand your concerns and I understand the willingness or the desire to support the library, I too want to support the library, but I also think we need to be aware of the impact on people who are also struggling financially because of the cost of food, the cost of living, the cost of fuel, et cetera. So I don't want to not give the money, but I also want us to be fully aware of where that money is going to come from and how it's going to impact those people who are going to have to reach into their wallet and pull the money out.
Right, and just like you agree that the community, the library is an important thing, you and I agree on that, I I agree too that we're going to have to step up and go into our pockets, but it's not that I don't see that, Lee. I do see that. But my priority this year is to come to this budget with a sense of compassion and understanding for all of our departments, and the library is one of those. And so I want to, do we debate this, or should I make a motion, Arnie?
We don't have a motion on this. It's going to be.
Well, do you want a motion, or do you want to keep on talking about it?
Well, we have to come to a consensus, and eventually we're going to ask, just say who's for the 5,000, who's against it, and we'll go with that. I mean, that's the only way I see doing it, because we vote on the whole budget as one, but I think we could just take a straw poll for something like that to see if it's going to work. We do have.
Okay, I just.
I'm sorry. Carrie King has her hand up also. She's the librarian, children's librarian at the library, and she'd like to make a comment. Go ahead, Carrie.
Well, hi, it's Carrie. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm Carrie Roy King. I am the youth librarian at the Whiting Library, as well as a resident of Chester and taxpayer of Chester. And I just want to advocate on behalf of the library when you are looking at this budget. I understand your concern about adding money to the budget and asking the taxpayers to pay more. And I appreciate your due diligence. But why I'm concerned is why it's just the library that's getting that attention when the other line items are increasing throughout the community. I haven't compared the budget one to one, but I do believe, the other departments have received increases. So I would adjust that we are also utilizing those funds in so many ways that have benefited our community, as you know. But also, the library has been underfunded for many, many years. I, as a youth librarian, certified public librarian, am paid much below grade to the average youth librarian. It's just important to recognize it's not just about wages, it's about the services that we provide to our community. I collaborate with our schools. I go in and read books at the Chester Community Preschool. I have collaborations with the kindergartens and first grade teachers, as well as students at the middle school and their teachers there. So it's a really universal situation that you're funding. The library is not a standalone. We are at the front porch of our community, and we are here to, connect us all in our community, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. I had one quick comment, Lee, and it kind of irked me a little bit when you said that you were like characterizing this increase as it's going to break some people. This 5,000 is going to be the breaking point of somebody on their taxes and not being able to afford it. Maybe that's true. It doesn't ring to me to be true, because it's just such a small amount. And I don't take any amount or any increase on this budget lightly. But I think that the 5,000 is still a good compromise, and it gives them a little increase. There were years when I first got on the select board that the budget was at around 50 or 60,000 or somewhere thereabouts, and it stayed there for like 8 or 9 years before we were able to get any increase. And the speeches were usually the same. Oh, it's an important part of the community, we support it, and there was always a but. I think for the 5,000, to put them in line a little better to help cope with what's happened in their last year and give them some money towards the future. And we could revisit this next year, hopefully with a lot of these questions answered that are concerns of ours and stuff, to see how they play out and what those funds could be used for, to look at their fundraising, what happens, to see the whole picture after a year of having a board that's in place with a new director, and without all the turmoil and the problems that have happened over the last year and stuff, just to give them a little chance. I think it's in my eyes, it's worth it for that 5,000. But that being said, we have to decide as a board. So I would ask.
Arnie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I add something to, I'm so sorry. I just want everyone to remember that the library is a community resource, and if we're underfunded, that impacts the resources that our community is able to access. For instance, Wi-Fi, resources for books, education, and entertainment purposes. Many people during recessions actually flock to the library because their budgets have been cut, and the library is a vital resource that helps provide those outlets when otherwise they could not personally afford them. So if you're actually underfunding the library, you're underfunding your constituents and their educational pursuits. So please, I thank you, and thank you, Heather, for suggesting 5,000. A compromise is completely reasonable, but I think we need to think about the greater picture and then how that will also impact our population. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pam.
So I think we're all at a point where we're ready to say how we feel.
Yes.
But I also, one thing every time we talk about where there are different accounts of money, I think of Derek Sursu sitting here and talking about money being his money versus other money and so on. And it makes sense. And when you look at those pots of, I don't want to say pots of funds, so accounts that have quite a bit of value to them, and then where those things are coming from. And I do think there's also the difference here between the library and those other departments, that they don't have if we were talking about a surplus that the highway department had of 300-some thousand, then that would be a different conversation. And so I certainly fully support the library and their mission and what you guys are trying to do. I have a hard time when, yes, we are trying to find money, of saying there's $300,000 there and we're going to give you more money. So that's where I'm at. And but I appreciate everybody's opinion. I also think that the past few meetings, we've continued to have really good conversations.
Yeah. And, as a board, we're always not going to agree. That's the makeup of the board and the makeup of our community and stuff. And that's the fact that we could talk about it civilly and have a discussion is the important part also. And I think that's what's valuable. And the question still becomes, no increase, or leave it at 93 for you?
That's what I would vote.
For you, Heather?
$5,000.
And Lee?
I support the budget as it's printed.
As it's printed with the 93,000.
No increase for the library?
Pardon me?
Does that mean no increase for the library?
I support the increase of 108,500.
You lost me on that one, Lee.
Well, I'm just looking at our general fund budget that I received in my packet, and this is the library page.
Which page you on?
But we're saying that didn't include the ask. They asked for $7,000, and I'm proposing that we compromise and increase it 5,000. And that would be 5,000 more than what we received.
Oh, okay, yes, okay, I support that as well. Yes, I understand now.
Lee, just be clear on this, because it is important. Right now, the budget is written with the contribution coming from the town on that line, the library fund, it says 93,000. The request from the library was 100,000. We left it at 93. Heather's, not motion, but Heather's thought was to increase it, a compromise of only 5,000, which would bring it to 98,000. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that.
So where do you stand on that?
I support Heather's thoughts or her suggestions.
All right, and so do I. So that would put 3 of us to 2 of us on that item, and it would be a 5,000 increase to 98,000.
So I'm gonna stick my neck out here and possibly make more enemies than I already have. But Lee Dakin, isn't your husband one of the trustees of the library?
Yes.
Okay, does that have any influence on your decision?
No, I think what it's done is sometimes many discussions we have, I understand why he's in the chair that he sits in there and what they do down there. So I can't tell you that that doesn't influence me, but we had good conversations, so.
Okay, yeah, just in the spirit of transparency, just asking a question.
That's okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a small town. I think there's conflict of interest in everybody I talk to when I walk down the road sometimes.
I agree.
Yep. Okay. So we'll,
Precedent.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Heather.
No, that's okay, nothing.
Wow. Anything else on the budget?
Not for me.
Any other questions or concerns?
I'm happy now.
As I am.
We'll meet on Friday morning.
You've done a good job on the budget, with the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, 8 o'clock Friday.
8 o'clock Friday.
8 a.m., right?
Yes, yep.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on. And we got the capital plan in there too. I know we didn't go over that, but that's,
Separate agenda item.
yeah. Oh, that's going to be separate?
That's your next agenda item.
Oh, capital plan, okay, yep. So that's the next item. Never mind review the time warning, which I just jumped to, because I totally messed right through that one. The capital plan bond plan approval. In your packet, you've got the latest numbers on the revenue, the current expenses, the proposed expenses for the bonds, and the capital plan. Julie, can you take us through that last
Yep,
one more
not a lot of
time?
change. Again, proposing to use some of our fund balance to reduce the taxpayer contribution. That would leave our capital plan fund balance at this time would be left at about 120, a little under 126,000 going into 2024. The only thing that we are proposing for purchase in 2023 would be the replacement of one of the dump trucks. Of course, the ambulance has been ordered, and as everybody knows, we received the grant for the tanker, so there's a match, $37,000 match. Again, the expenses of those three items would not hit until 2024. And then the bond this year would be paving. We always do a paving bond. So the paving this year would be the Andover Weston Road, which is in dire need. We are hoping to receive the 2-for-1 grant on that. So our portion of that, I think we're budgeting a little high at this point, but the thing with the grant with this funding is we only borrow what the actual price ends up being. But that's putting paving at 300. We have the match for the project on Green Mountain Turnpike I talked to you guys about. That was grant funded, but we have a match. And the last part of Route 35, we have the match. So there is that bond. Again, first payment wouldn't be till 2024. So it's just those four asks for 2024.
Any questions on the bond or capital plans? I had a quick one or two. I know that some of the ARPA funds were used for the last payment, sometimes to drop them out of the plan itself.
Yep.
So are there any other places that still could be used?
In 2024, sure.
But on 2023, there's some numbers that drop off in 2024.
So the numbers that drop off for 2023, the
Or already?
last payments for 2023,
Yeah.
those last payments, you are actually using fund balance, capital fund balance.
Okay.
We have a $500,000 fund balance there. We're using some of that.
So that would be for the loader?
The last 2023 payments.
Yeah.
You don't want to use it for anything else, you're just going to
Because
spike
it
your budget in
yeah.
2023.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but that loader, that's where that's being used?
Yep, the loader, the,
How about the Palmer Bridge? That has
The
two
loader,
payments.
well, again, you could, but you just want to commit that you're going to do it for 2 years.
Yeah.
You're doing it for 23 and 24.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, it's just an option out there,
No,
because we
absolutely.
talk about ARPA funds and money that we have
Uh-huh.
in different areas on
Yep.
how to help with the tax
Yep.
base and stuff, and it would lower it for this year and help with next year.
Right, my only thought on that is not using it all in one year, because we don't know what 24 is
No,
gonna be.
I know, no.
So,
It's like-
that's my only thought.
it's
I don't want
keeping
to, I don't want to, my caution in all my conversations with Ron, with our auditors, has
Yep.
been being very careful that you do not artificially suppress your 2023 budget, because economists are predicting 24 or 25 are going to be even worse.
It's not going to be bad. But this
So-
wouldn't artificially suppress it because it's a payment that ends next year.
Correct.
It would
You
do the
need to
same
do it
thing
for
that we're
23 and
already
24,
doing.
But now you're going to take 50,000
I know.
additional out of the capital fund.
Yeah.
What if you need that 100,000 in 24?
No, it would come from ARPA.
Oh, from ARPA funds. Same, it's up to the board. We may need that 500,000 next year for
No,
something that comes up.
and,
That's all.
but
that's up to
and
the
it could
board.
be 350 or 400. I mean, I'm just throwing the same ideas that you were talking about with pots of money that are around that we could use or not use, and use them for a reason or not use them. I have no, personal opinion about whether we should or not, but that is available too.
We've used about 125,000 of our fund balance from capital.
Yeah.
We've used this year, and we've used a little over 300,000 from ARPA.
Yeah.
So we have certainly touched our own fund balances.
Yeah. Oh, no, I realize that.
Yeah.
And there's, what, 400 or 500 left of ARPA?
They're a little over 4.
Just throwing it out there. Because on their highway equipment, that one is going to be used, that 41,000.
Correct.
That's already coming.
Anything that was a final payment in
Yep.
23,
Yep.
the capital fund balance is paying that.
Okay. Thanks, because I have a hard time following. Got too many colors and too many numbers on here
It's a
sometimes.
confusing plan. I get it. Lots of stuff.
Any other questions or concerns about capital?
So if I understand this correctly, the total expenses for 2022 were 750 roughly, and for 2023, it's going to be $1,013,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drop down to 957 in '24.
Part of what's inflating that number and looking a little odd is that 200,000 on the Depot Street sidewalk.
Okay,
So that money has already been put in and is being held in capital. So Depot Street is likely not going to be constructed this year. We're still waiting on rail clearance.
okay,
So that will shift over to 2024. That's kind of inflating that number a little bit.
okay,
So if you remove that 200,000 from that million, it's expending about 800,000 next year.
okay. But that means we'll be spending 1.1 million in '24, is that?
Correct. But the
Okay.
200,000 you already have. That's
Right.
already in there, and it's not figured into your fund balance.
Okay.
It's set aside.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
an encumbered fund, yeah,
We really still are waiting on the railroad.
absolutely.
By the time this goes through, there's not going to be trains. It's unreal. It really is.
I have all kinds of people
I-
attacking.
Are
them
you
at this
surprised, Arnie?
point. Huh?
I wasn't surprised 3 or 4 years ago. I am just flabbergasted at this point. It just.
I do think that we're getting to a final resolution. I have a lot of people in V-Trans who are also very angry that are now going after the rail, and I'm out of it.
I should hope so, because our expenses are just going up on this
Absolutely.
project every year.
Exactly right.
The sidewalk's going to be about 100 yards long pretty soon.
Well, the railroads have zero incentive to change. I mean, they are protected by all kinds of laws, and they just can sit on their hands and do nothing.
There's something wrong with
And,
that system.
Well, that's the way it's been, that's the way it's
And you've
been
got
for a
multiple
long time.
agencies. It's the state's division of rail, and then you have Green Mountain Rail, or Vermont Rail, the Vermont Rail System, and those two agencies, and they don't communicate. I mean, I know it's surprising that a state agency doesn't communicate, but they don't. They don't communicate very well at all, and they have different rules and different policies, and it gets difficult. But I think we're nearing an end. We've got the right people. I've made a lot of phone calls.
I'm not holding my
I
breath.
got senators working on it, and I got.
It's not
We're
happening.
getting
No.
I know. I'm with you.
Any
We
other-
won't be constructing this year because I'm not going to bid it in April. I mean,
No, because by then, everybody else is already
No.
lined up for the year, and anybody that bids on it, bidding on it,
Exactly.
just to put it on the song.
no, it'll be a 24.
And the feds are okay with that?
Yes. But they're part of the ones that are on the rail because they understand what is holding up this project. So,
It's been 8
It's an
years.
incentive for them to get going.
What was the original, the year?
It's been almost 6 years.
I think that was my first year initially on the board.
And then you took a break and you came back, and
Yeah.
it's still there.
Still there.
Wow.
I think we're seeing the problem here.
All right. Any other questions, concerns, comments on the capital and bond plans? Now I can go to the review to town warning, right? And in front, did any of the other ones in italics come in? Or-
Not yet.
So they have
I
till
would
Thursday
anticipate
for that,
They have till
right?
tomorrow. I would anticipate we get them.
Should I read this whole thing?
You don't have to. I mean, I guess I would just focus on the two new things then from any other town warning, are Articles 4 and 5.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's a big change for our town. Usually the Article 4, which is about our town clerk, is an elected position. And in this case, we're going to try to change it to an appointed position. And it's the same thing goes for the Article 5, which is town treasurer. And I think, Julie, you could speak to this and the reasons why we're thinking that that's a good idea as opposed to having an elected position to having an appointed position.
So this is something that the legislature gave authority to a couple of years ago. If you recall, we did this with the listers. Authority was given on that, as well as local auditors. One of the benefits of moving it to an appointed position is the requirements and skills needed to do these municipal jobs are increasing tremendously. So it's a bit of a protection against somebody running who has no skills. There have been some towns who have had people elected into these positions that have really just kind of wreaked havoc on, certainly the treasurer part, have done a lot of damage in the financial systems. That is why the legislature changed the statute several years ago, that gave the towns the opportunity to appoint. It does not make them they're not the same status as a regular municipal employee. They can only be removed by action of the select board for just cause. So there still is a layer of protection for them, much like the zoning administrator, because their duties are bound by statute as well. So to protect them, you can't have a select board that comes in and dictates they do something that violates the law. So they have a layer of protection as well, but it does let the town have some say, or the select board have some say, into who is filling those roles and who is filling those positions. It also, if you've got years where nobody runs, that can create a very large issue as well. So, some people just simply won't run for an office, but give me an application and I'll apply for the position. You can also have a few more choices into who you put into that spot. The real issue is the treasurer position for Chester. We have a bookkeeper, we have a financial system in place that works very well. Our treasurer is stipend. Her authority really is signing of checks and warrants and those types of things. By statute, you could have a treasurer comes in that completely changes our financial system. If they chose to.
There's a lot of power.
There's a lot of power there. And there has been damage done in other municipalities with that. So there are many towns that are moving to these being appointed positions. Obviously needs to be done by vote of by the voters. It's not a select board action. But certainly the select board would decide whether or not it goes on the warning or vote.
So on something like this, it says authorize the select board to appoint a town clerk.
Correct.
We're not that much better at judging on who would be good for that position anyway. Is it some, in cooperation with the town manager or with?
The statute is the select board appoints, much like.
Appoints.
Correct.
But it could be that,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Much like the zoning administrator. That's all handled through the planning commission and they make a recommendation to you. The same thing could happen in this position, but the appointment is made by the select board. You are the ones with the authority. The town managers are not given authority to appoint.
And does this affect ours? Does her term run out this year, I believe?
Her term runs out this year anyway. Debbie is running
Oh,
again.
okay. All
But what would happen is this supersedes that.
Yep.
So there would still be an election, but then there would be an appointment
Right,
process
from that-
after.
from
If
that
this-
point
If this
on.
were to pass, there would be an appointment that would take effect immediately.
Next year,
No, immediately,
immediate.
correct.
So what's the downside?
There are some clerks who feel like this is taking away their, freedom to do whatever they want, There are some clerks in the state who enjoy the ability to, in their eyes, work for nobody. They do work for somebody, they work for the voters. But that's not an issue for us. We don't have a clerk who thinks that way, but you might. So there are some clerks that are not in favor of this, because they do feel it takes away some of their freedom. But I believe that that's why the appointment piece was put in, not hired as an employee, to protect them. You don't want a select board, you don't want a difficult select board that tells a clerk that they're not going to do something a certain way when they're bound that way by statute. We've never had a board that would do that. Not to say that you wouldn't, but the appointment piece eliminates that. Other than that, I don't know. Other than, some people disagree with, they like that to stay in elected position, and you have some voters that, contested when we changed the listers. I mean, it passed, but there were some no's.
I guess I'm in favor of this just because I think the accountability is important. And so when you have somebody who's elected and is accountable once a year, sometimes that can get difficult. So I would be in favor of this.
I think with the added demands on a person in that position of what's changing and what's going on in the finances and everything else, it's important to have a person that's qualified for it and maybe not just elected because they're popular in town or whatever the case may be, which hopefully isn't the way it works, but I could see where it might sometimes. And it's up to what we're doing is we're not making the decision, we're letting the voters make the decision, whether they want to take away that or lose that right to vote for the town clerk or the town treasurer, so.
How do you get on the morning? Yeah. That's what they're talking about right now, the select board are going to add it.
It's a select board appointed.
So
I mean, we could turn around and say, no, we don't want it on there, and it's gone.
No, I'm supportive of putting it on the ballot and to the voters.
Sure. Lee?
Lee Dakin, yes?
I'm sorry, Lee, I should specify.
I support the way this is written. I think that it's almost, it's not quite, I'm not comparing it to hiring a town manager, but certainly the town manager and others in those positions know the needs that are required to serve as the town clerk. And so I think this makes it pretty clear, and that's how we do other kinds of hires or appointments.
Sure. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
I guess the consensus of the board is leave it on there and let the voters decide on this.
Our voters will let us know.
Yep. And that's 4 and 5. Now, is Article 6 because of that 5,000 change?
The Article
number?
6 is just, once you approve the actual budget number, I will insert that.
All right.
Correct.
Any other questions on anything else on the
All the rest are
town
special.
meeting, town warning? The rest are pretty much petition things. They're pretty much every year that we go through and stuff that will come up at town meeting day. But those are the ones that concerned us as a board.
So the only other comment I have or question is, I know in the past we've added up the special requests for the articles, and is that going to be included on this warning at the bottom? So we have like
Oh, it's actually, I know
article,
what you're saying. It's actually in your budget.
it's where?
It's actually noted at the bottom of your budget.
Oh, okay, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you
It's
talking
not
about, Lee?
included in the budget, the total of the special
Oh,
interest article.
oh, okay, yep.
It's
Yep.
not included in your budget number, but it's
Right.
reflected at the bottom of your budget to show what those total. It's like 38,000.
Yep.
Is that something we can add at the bottom of the warning?
As a note?
As a note?
I don't know. if we
'Cause I
ever
did the
do
math,
add
it's like
notes that.
The
34,000.
only thing I can add to a warning is what's going to be voted.
Yeah.
It's a statement that's voted.
It could be discussed, and we try to make it clear on the day that we do start voting on it, or right before we vote on it, that that's going to be added to our overall budget. And it usually ends up being a penny.
It's been,
You know? And there has been years where it's been debated on some of the issues, especially if there was no one there to speak towards the request. But most of the time, it seems like we're a pretty generous town when it comes to all
absolutely,
these
yeah.
organizations that do so much for this town.
Yep.
So that's the review of the town warning. And that, we'll finalize that on Friday morning also, along with the budget. Next item is just some paperwork regarding our Vermont Drinking Water Revolving Fund, the Sightline Inventory Loan. And I guess this is just for it was a discussion we've had about the water, with the water department, and I guess it's to find the lead lines in town, but basically it's a lot more than that. It's an inventory of all the water main line assets. It talks about all of them.
Yep,
Yeah.
it would do everything, and, look at the signature page. But it is primarily has to do with.
The lead.
Lead lines,
Yeah.
yes, lead inventories. And so this will be 100% funded. This will be 100% funded by drinking water, so there's no expense to the town.
And there's no payback on this,
No.
Because some of them, I remember that when we used to do it, they would be funded and then it would be rolled into the bond
No,
of
this is
the
100%.
project.
This is 100%.
This is, they're paying for it and they're
This is
happy
a-
with it.
Correct.
And-
Chester has been slated as one of the towns to get funded this year.
And it's defined lead, but they're basically going to map out all our lines,
Correct.
all the service lines.
Yep.
So
Be a
we
big
need to
help
vote on
as-
this, or is this just,
You're going to actually sign it if you agree.
oh, I didn't
Don't
see a
agree, don't
signature
sign.
page, sorry.
We need a motion on this?
Sure, go ahead.
I make a motion to sign the document.
Second?
Doesn't hurt.
Ben's the motion and Lee is the second to sign the Vermont Drinking Water State Revolving Fund regarding service line inventory loan application. Any discussion on this?
The only
Any
question I
further
have
discussion?
is on page 2, where it has other personnel/board members. The title role, it looks like it's overtyped
Yeah.
on
It-
my.
Every
well,
single
that's-
one.
It's their program. It
Okay.
won't- yeah, that's how it's printing out,
Okay.
yeah.
I thought it was my glasses.
No, it's their fill-in PDF. There's something wrong with it.
Yeah, something was not working. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor of approving the motion as stated, please say aye.
All right,
Anybody opposed? Is this the original? This the one?
I'll sign it Friday, Julie.
Fabulous.
Can't get it apart. That ain't it.
It's page 2. It's, yeah.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, it's right here. There you go. It's right there.
Oh.
There you go.
It's page 2 out of 10 of them. Here you go, Ben.
all set, Mr. Chair.
Future agenda items, new business. Anybody have any suggestions or ideas that they want for future agenda items?
Julie, will we have information about the solar field appraisal by
It should
next
be the
meeting?
first meeting in February. They're
Okay.
still targeting January 26th.
26th, yeah.
So the second meeting, or the first meeting in February, actually.
Okay.
Something.
Can we put on the agenda if we do have that information? Okay. Thank you.
So once we have that appraisal, at least we'll be able to go forward from there. Anything else for future agenda items? Did anybody contact you regarding a stage for the Academy building?
I did not listen to messages today. I
Oh,
was
okay.
in and out with my dad, so
No.
I understand it was relayed to me that there is a conversation coming, so I will contact those individuals and get more information and potentially be on a future agenda item.
All right. I was just curious if they had made contact or not.
I believe that there is a voicemail in my box, I just haven't gotten it.
You've been busy?
I'm a little crazy,
Thanks.
yeah.
I don't have anything else for anything right now for future agenda items. Anybody else? Lee or Heather, anything?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Not right now, thank you.
The next item is a possible executive session for the police collective bargaining agreement. I know we had an executive session at our last meeting, and we've gone through it, and I guess they agreed to all the changes and the corrections that we had on there. So unless someone sees a need for having an executive session to discuss something else that's on there, I believe that we're okay with it as it stands. So I
I'd be
wouldn't
interested to
think
know
that
how
we
the
need it.
discussion went.
What's that?
How the discussion went.
There was no discussion. I emailed the changes and they came back made.
Okay.
There was no discussion.
Okay.
There was, nothing on it.
Those are the
Was
best
happy with them all. That was pretty good. I know a lot of hard work has gone into this. It's been, almost a year?
Oh, yeah.
Originally, when we first got involved with this, I thought it was just going to be basically an agreement that stated what we already offered, what we already had in place, as opposed to a debate or an argument over what they would like to have. But I think especially Julie and our council did a good job, and the rest of the committee members and stuff, as far as getting it all pulled together, and I hope it works out, and I think it meets all the needs for the union and for the town, and the officers involved with it. They have some protection. It's all written out there. It's pretty much explained, and most of it is basically what we've already offered, or already the relationship that we already had. It's just put in writing at this time, and it's a 23 to 25. Yeah. So we need a motion to.
You need a motion to authorize me to sign the agreement.
So I would entertain a motion to authorize Julie, the town manager, to sign our agreement with the New England Police Benevolent Association Local 433, dating January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
Ben's the motion. Is there a second? Lee Dakin's the second. Any further discussion, comments, questions, or concerns on that? On the
I have
motion?
a couple.
All those in favor?
Hold
please-
on.
He said he has a-
Wait, wait,
Oh, go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
Lee Gustafson.
Oh, Lee Gustafson.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
sorry, Lee.
We had talked about formatting, and this is not a big deal. However, on page 24, Article 39, the subsections are numbered Article 38 or number 38, and that could be confusing if we have to reference this document to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So Article 38, that starts on page 22, has no numbers associated with it. And Article 39, which starts on page 24, the subsections are labeled 38.1, 38.2. So I don't know if that's a concern. It would be a concern to me if I were signing this, but I'm not signing it.
That is certainly something I can just have them change. Again, I don't have the document, I need to have them make the change.
Yep.
But I can certainly do that before I sign it.
And I would suggest if they're making the type of change to number the subsections under Article 38 as well. I mean, just for clarity's sake, to make sure that everything is
Uniform.
appropriate and uniform. I don't like to be picky, but for something like this, I would be picky.
I'll tell them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But I also would agree for you to sign it once it's revised to your satisfaction.
So the motion would be to sign the authorize Julie to sign the document with that change requested.
The only other question I had was the dates. That works for all our stuff? January to December?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? You still got a few years before you have to revisit that again. That's at the bottom of the list. Executive session. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
What's that?
You're adjourning the select board meeting. then you
Yeah,
go
we
to
have to
water.
go into the water and sewer thing next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully, the water and sewer is not going to be that long, but yeah, we still need everybody here. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 And we'll open up our Water and Wastewater Commissioners meeting. First item on the agenda is citizens' comments. If there's someone that want to bail on this in between, you're allowed to. Because it just gets more interesting as we go along. See you. We're losing our citizens for comments. We have still some on Zoom. No, we're losing them there too.
We have John, he's a citizen.
We'll touch base tomorrow, Chief. We'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks, Tom.
See you, Chief. Citizens' comments. If there's someone that'd like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Are there any citizens' comments? Going on to item number 2 is to approve our 2023 water fund budget. Julie, can you take us through that?
Excuse me, sorry. I know, you really have so a few changes in here, primarily having to do with the labor. All the employees have now been pooled into one, divided by 50%, half in one, half in another. So for water and sewer, I mean, it just kind of skews the numbers a little bit, but it's a better representation of what's actually taking place. Same thing with benefits. All of those have been combined and then divided between the two departments equally. So you'll see in one it's a little higher and another one it's not as high.
So we're looking at them both at the same time, kind of.
You really kind
because,
of are. They kind of go together,
Yeah.
but yet they're two separate funds.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do that, or do you want me to keep them
No,
separate?
no, do them together like that, because we share the employees, and they're basically the same. It's just, they have to be treated as separate, but
Right. So the only change since the last time, one of the changes was chemicals. Jeff, there has been another increase in chemicals he just found out about. So that has jumped both budgets, and obviously we have to have chemicals for both of these departments. So that was another increase that was taken. And then the other thing that we learned, which will definitely affect the capital fund, but I am not accounting for it in the capital fund until comes and does our 22 audit, In 2016, we did the 2016 bond, that was our very first bond series. In that bond was, for water, it was hydrants. And then in hydrants and the purchase of the land, their portion of the purchase of the land where the new tank went. And for sewer, there was some upgrades to pump stations that were part of those bonds. And so on the capital plan, you'll see that water and sewer were supposed to contribute to the capital fund each year since 2016 as their portion of that payment. Those transfers never took place. So I caught that when I started doing a deep dive. It was when that bond was set up, that never got to SIL. That payment and transfer never made it to the bookkeeper, from the town manager to the bookkeeper.
So the money came from the general fund?
We've been paying it out of the capital plan. So when we pay
Yeah, which is
our
our general-
bond
yeah.
payments out of the capital plan, we've been paying the whole bill, but water and sewer hadn't been paying their contribution towards that. So you're gonna see in the 2022 actuals for both water and sewer where that transfer was made this year that caught us up.
Oh, for all the years?
For
up to
all the
that
years,
point.
correct. And then you're gonna see in '23, their last payment as well, will be made towards the capital plan. That, of course, is going to have an impact on the fund balance of the capital plan.
Which are pretty,
In a positive direction. That's in addition
Yeah.
to the 125,000 you've already got there.
and the fund balance in the water and sewer department are
Very
pretty healthy.
They're well into $1 million.
Yeah, so it's not gonna,
No,
yeah.
no. But it's what needed to happen. Those
Yeah.
transfers, those contributions needed to be made to the general fund. So that has happened. So that's another big piece. As I've been saying right along, once we get into the year, we'll definitely be looking at raising rates. We have not raised rates in a number of years. I don't think we'll need to do excessive increases, but the costs for water and sewer going up as well.
And chemicals and this and that, yeah.
So therefore, the rates need to take an increase also. We don't really want to cap those fund balances for water and sewer because we have large projects coming. And it would be nice to be able to use those fund balances as matches to grants, so on and so forth, so that we don't really have to increase rates when it comes to these more expensive projects.
Sewer plant's gonna be
The
coming up
sewer,
eventually
engineering of the
too.
sewer plant's gonna be a big one, secondary well for water. Again, hopefully can get some grant funding to help with that, but there will be a match. None of it's gonna be 100%. So, we'll be looking at increases, probably in February. And those are the big things for water and sewer. I think other than those, I think they're
The
sitting.
workman's comp is up a little, but that's just,
But again, workers' comp is up across the board.
Yeah.
That's one of the increases. Workers' comp is up, property casualty is up across the board. Property casualty went up a large percentage. General fund budget,
Co-insurance.
that's up $30,000.
co-insurance too,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And the co-insurance looks more here because,
But it's on both of them.
it's on both of them, and it's primarily, so the reason it's looking higher is we have 2 employees who are married, so they're on one plan. The general fund budget has been carrying both of them, but they're both employees, and one of them is water, one of them is general fund, so that should be split.
Yeah.
Water should be carrying their portion of that, and their portion of the co-insurance. So,
So that changed.
that changed as well. Yep, trying to get a fair distribution, there. So that is one of those changes also, which is why you're seeing a little increase. Those numbers are all going to be skewed now that we're accounting for them differently.
Well, that's a better representation of what's
Absolutely,
happening.
of what's happening, exactly. Yep, exactly. So, those are the major changes there.
Anybody have any questions, concerns regarding either the water department budget or the sewer department budget? You need a motion on each one individually?
We do.
I would entertain a motion to approve our 2023 water fund budget.
So moved.
So moved.
Lee Gustafson's the motion. Heather Chase, how about a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussions, comments, concerns regarding the water budget? All those in favor of approving the budget as written, please say aye.
Aye.
And I would entertain a motion to approve the sewer department budget.
So moved.
Second.
Lee Dakin's the motion and Lee Gustafson's the second. Any further discussions, questions, concerns regarding the sewer department budget? It's good that they have good, healthy fund balances, that's for sure. Because I mean, they had a little downturn this last year or two, but hanging in. All those in favor of approving the sewer department budget, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All set. One more motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that one.
Lee Gustafson's the motion, Heather Chase is the second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Good night, everybody. I'll see you Friday morning.